Everyone, it's Scott, and I'm back with the top 10 new uncommons from Magic the Gathering Foundations. I've already done a preview video for the most important new rares and also the 10 best new mythics from the set, and I will be back later on in the week with the top 10 list for commons, uncommons, rares, and mythics that are reprints from the set. But before we dive into today's list, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Foundations, spoiler season, and beyond. Alright, so at number 10, I've got Jouthrough. For a white mana, you get an instant, and Jouthrough deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. You gain a life. This is very reminiscent of Elspeth's Smite that does 3 damage to a target attacking or blocking creature. The difference here is Elspeth's Smite exiles, while Jouthrough gains you a life, but that life might be relevant in the game. So I think this is a card that players will have to consider in that one cost, basically lightning bolt spot for removal in white. Next, we've got at number 9, Midnight Snack. For 2 and a black mana. You get an enchantment with Raid, and at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, create a food token. So very nice ability on this. Basically, if you're playing an aggressive deck, you want to take a turn off to potentially gain some life throughout the course of the game, then Midnight Snack I think is a good option for you. And also you can sacrifice Midnight Snack for 2 and a black mana, and target opponent loses X life, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. So in a life gain deck, I think that part of the card might be very relevant. But even in the mid to late game where you can crack a couple of those food tokens and then go ahead and sacrifice Midnight Snack and do 6 damage to your opponent, I think that would be very, very relevant in Standard. Coming in at number 8, I've got Mischief Mystic. For 1 and a blue mana. You get a human wizard. That's a 2/1 with flying. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. So I think this goes in a deck obviously dedicated to drawing more cards every turn. But more importantly, we've got a decent fairies deck kind of in Standard already. So this might be a way to get additional fairies for that deck into play. Or because of some of the reprints that we got, we might even be able to go back to a Azorius Flyers deck. And we've got some good cards for that from Magic the Gathering Foundations. So I think this is a card that is definitely going to find a home somewhere in Standard. At number 7, I've got Rune Sealed Wall. For 2 and a blue mana. You get a artifact creature that's a wall and is a 0/6 with Defender, and you can tap it to surveil 1. Now 3 mana on this is a lot, but the fact that it probably will stop almost any creature on the ground, I think is relevant in Standard. Now, is this a 4-of index? No, but I think in a control build where you're just trying to, prevent your opponent from doing overwhelming damage by turn 5, I think this is a pretty good card. And you block with it and then you surveil with it, so you get to, shape the top of your library with every, once a turn you're getting to do that. And I think that's good enough to see Standard play. Next, we've got Ravenous Amulet. For 2 mana. You get an artifact with pay 1 mana and tap this and sacrifice a creature. You get to draw a card and put a soul counter on this artifact. You get to activate only as a sorcery. And for 4 mana, and you can tap this and you can sacrifice this artifact. Each opponent loses life equal to the number of soul counters on this artifact. So I think this is a card really designed to go into a Rakdos sacrifice deck or a sacrifice deck of some kind. And we're going to talk more about that as we progress through our top 10. Next, at number 5, we've got Dreadwing Scavenger. For 1, a blue and a black mana. You get a Nightmare. That's a bird and is a 2/2 with flying. And whenever this creature enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card then discard a card. So, nice rummage ability on Dreadwing Scavenger. Certainly a ability that is going to matter in threshold decks. And this creature gets +1/+1 and has Death Touch as long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard. That's its threshold ability. But we've got a number of cards that are new to the format that have threshold on them. And I think because of that desire to have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, I think this is a great enabler of that. And we talked about the Kiora that we've got at the rare spot that does a similar thing where it gets to draw 2 and discard 2. And with these kind of cards together, I think there's probably a pretty good Dimir deck that's going to be built around this threshold ability. Next, at number 4, we've got Divine Resilience for a white mana. You get an instant with kicker of 2 and a white, and target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. And if this spell was kicked, instead, any number of target creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So really powerful 1-cost ability here, giving something indestructible. It's not hexproof, but I think in white, giving something indestructible is very relevant in Standard, because we know we've got a lot of removal that's relatively low cost, particularly in black. And as long as it's not exile removal, then I think Divine Resilience is a great, at least sideboard card in white decks going forward. At number 3, we've got Vengeful Blood Witch for 1 and a black mana. You get a Vampire Warlock. That's a 1/1. And whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So draining gain on Vengeful Bloodlord. And this is kind of our Blood Artist for the set. And along with the card we talked about a few minutes ago, Ravenous Amulet. These are the kind of cards you want in Standard in a Blood Artist style or Rakdos Sacrifice deck. And this is just another good enabler of that. And we know we've already got a few other cards that are relevant to this deck already in Standard. So I think this is a deck that certainly is going to see play. At number 2, I've got Perforating Artists for 1, a black and a red mana. You get a Devil, that's a 3/2. With Death Touch. It also has Raid, and at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, each opponent loses 3 life, unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent of their choice or discards a card. So really nice ability on Perforating Artist. I already talked about the fact that we have in Standard a Rakdos build that is basically a deck where just by playing the game, your opponent is going to be losing life, whether it's drawing cards, whether it's you playing lands, and it doesn't even really have to attack to do a decent amount of damage to them. And I think this is just another card in support of that format. All right, and at number 1, you guessed it, Bolt Wave for 1 red mana. You get a sorcery, and Bolt Wave deals 3 damage to each opponent. And this is an identical card and wording to Lava Spike. Okay, I'm actually not sure why they didn't just reprint Lava Spike, but for those of us that like to play burn decks in Modern, this is just now another additional burn spell for that deck, which is awesome. And I think Bolt Wave is going to be a card that really matters in Standard, because this is a card I think any red player is going to want to have in their deck. I know we've got a lot of cards right now in Standard that we're dealing with things that are trying to pump stuff, but we actually have a very, very good burn deck developing in Standard, and we've already got the prowess creatures in red for the deck. So I think we might even see burn reappear as a very viable format, because we've got Shock, we've got Lightning Strike, we've got Bolt Wave, we've got Lightning Helix. We also got Boros Charm in this set. So I think when we think about where Standard is going, red is in a really good place, and I think black is as well. All right, so those are my top 10 uncommons that are new to Magic from Magic the Gathering Foundations. Tell me what you think in your comments. Did you like something better? Did I get something wrong? And remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Foundation season. And I've left the links to my rare and mythic top 10 videos here so you can take a look at what I think are the best new rares and mythics from the set. Thanks. I'll see you next time.